Friends, we are starting now. Today is the 217th Friday group meeting. Topic is the rights of Muslim women. The path covered Shabano to Muhammad Abdul Samad, the recent judgment of Supreme Court by Justice Nagaratna. The speaker is our beloved Shobha Gupta ji, senior advocate. After senior advocate, first time she is addressing our Friday group, and she addressed our Friday group on 135th Friday group meeting, and after that 165th Friday group meeting, and after that 188th Friday group, that is a lawyer's role in India's freedom movement. Her contribution in YouTube channel is 10,700 something like. So it's a good. Now you can initiate Shobha ji. We are very proud. We elevated as senior advocate. In fact, we felicitated. First time we are addressing as a senior advocate. Please.
अच्छा just put like this. Is it okay?
वहाँ भी क्लिप लगा वो बेटर ये लेगा
अभी नहीं लेंगे.
ठीक ओके गुड राइट दूर हो गया दूर हो गया निकाल दो ये
क्या करना है ये?
हाँ, वो पास है इधर बैठ सर इधर का माइक को आपकी तरफ का राइट
What did you do now? So good afternoon Sheshu sir. Good afternoon everyone. I enjoy being member of this group, and I try to somehow fit in somewhere in the eloquence of everyone. I would try to do a good job today also, but let's see. Topic, I'm excited because the topic is very interesting. When the judgment came and there was so much of the news around it, so you tend to just read all the reports which are coming across and try to make an opinion about it. When I was reading and I was like, there was so much of the noise around the judgment and appreciation, my mind was okay, this view has been given by Supreme Court earlier as well, so possibly not something which is something new, or maybe path breaking, or maybe it's not as if a new law is laid down. So personally I was interested to read this topic, read the judgment, and enhance myself as a law student. When the opportunity came across and I realized okay I can, I was just thinking about that when you called upon, and I was thinking if I can just make a I have a session on this one. And the same day Sheshu sir called me and he said why not you occupy this Friday. And I said I'm glad, like I have a topic already in my hand. We had two earlier topics before which are still pending to be delivered, but then I had grabbed this opportunity. I started and read the judgment, which is this is a judgment in both the judges have given concurring opinion, but two separate judgments. Both have given a lengthy judgment. So in total it becomes 90 pages from the Supreme Court citation. What reports we have there. Once it would be published by all these law reports, it would be squeezing. So maybe much easier to read then. It's good to read always the judgments when they cover all the historical background about where they are now arriving to. For me also it was very, very interesting, and I'm really you can see a smile, and the smile is only because I'm happy. Happy in terms I read it. I read all the law. So from beginning till now, certainly not all the high courts and other things, but Supreme Court broadly I covered. So I'll just give you the name of the judgment. This judgment came on 10th of July. We are doing this lecture on 19th of July, so close. Maybe the closest possible discussion on any judgment, right? In the history of Friday group. I assume so. We have never done it 9 days of any judgment. The name of the case is, normally we remember these cases as Shahabano or maybe Shamima Faruqi or maybe Fazulan B, but this is not by the name of the woman. It's because the husband came here, and since it was a 125 CRPC proceedings, the erstwhile now what act we have? It is Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sanhita 2023, and the section has become 144 with little tweaking of language, little tweaking only. So this is Muhammad Abdul Samad versus state of Telangana. Okay, the respondent number 2 happens to be the wife. Her name is Khurshid Jahan. I've prepared a paper which I would share with Sheshu sir after completing this, and for me I have written it like that: Muhammad Abdul Samad, husband of Khurshid Jahan, what we normally write as wife of, alias Aisha Fatima. The facts are simple. The citation is also a neutral citation nowadays we are using. This is 2024 INSC 506. Facts are very simple. And what are the facts? Facts are that they got married in the year 2012. Some differences in 16 she parted ways. She left the matrimonial home. Then she applied for maintenance. Once she applied for maintenance, the husband had declared unilateral talaq. Unilaterally they can. So he declared the talaq. They obtained a certificate which was a valid certificate from a qazi. So it appears to be a case of a consent because she did not object to that particular procedure. She filed a maintenance petition which was pending there in the family court. The family court had awarded an interim maintenance of rupees 20,000. The husband came before High Court challenging that order, saying that since there was already a divorce granted which was a valid divorce, not objected to under our personal law, pursuant to that the meher and other thing has been given. Therefore, a maintenance petition under 125 CRPC would not be maintainable. Now, for me as a law student, it was very surprising that how come now in 2023, the High Court's order is December 23, sorry. How come in December 23, High Court was entertaining this plea? If law we say is well settled by Shah Banu in 85 or by Daniel Latifi in 2001, but High Court, while entertaining the petition, they said there is a legal issue involved. I am relegating it back to the family court, asking the family court to decide the matter within 6 months. Meanwhile, I am reducing the amount from 20,000 to 10,000 to be paid arrears in 50%. He had given some directions. The husband was still not contented with that order. He came to Supreme Court on the legal plea precisely. We don't have the copy of the SLP. The order does not so broadly reflect the questions framed, but yes, the judges do frame their questions. So I am assuming that must be the question in the SLP as well. That again the same point, that a personal law divorce, the wife would not be entitled in that case for maintenance to be claimed under section 125 CRPC. It was not in so many words said that to Muslim wife, or maybe whether the court is secular or not. The Supreme Court, when this matter came before them in February 24, they did not issue notice. They rather pick up the issue. They said we will decide it, and they appointed an amicus, Gaurav Agrawal, now senior counsel. He was then also senior counsel when appointed. This matter was heard, reserved by 19th February. Judgment has been pronounced now in July 24. The court has broadly said, just as one-liner if I have to say, that the code is a secular one. What religion the wife who is destitute needs the compensation or needs the maintenance. The religion does not matter. You might come from any religion, you might belong to any faith. Whether you are still in marriage or there is a divorce taken, given or taken. Whether this is a divorce given or taken under the personal law or under Indian Special Marriage Act or any other codification, you would be entitled for maintenance if you are able to establish that I am not able to maintain myself with the meher or other things given to me. That is precisely not even maintenance. The two judges have given separate opinion but concurrent. They both said the same thing. Judgments are very good. preferably the second judgment by Justice Nagaratna is really very good to be read in total. Now my query was, where are we standing in 2024? Is it a case of a altogether development from Shah Bano in 1985 or from Daniel Latifi? Was it a case, and that was a journey I had to travel, was it a case that in the meanwhile from 2001 to now courts had taken divergent view? Is it a case that there was some confusion scrapped up, or the court, Supreme Court I'm talking, had been consistent in its approach when it's come to saying whether 125 is maintainable or not, whether the 125 is accessible to the Muslim women or not? So I'll just travel through judgments. You may take note, you may not take note, because I would be then passing on this note. Just allow me. So the first case which I could lay hands to, subject to always a correction, a very good researcher than me would maybe take out more judgments. So I could lay hands to this one as the first one. This is by Tahira. And to all our, excitement, the judgment was written by Justice Krishna Iyer, so you can imagine the language and the approach. You always wonder when you see these judgments of 70s and 80s, the language which has been used, the human quotient which has been put in, which sometimes you might miss here. They may use the same language, but there the human quotient was so much like they are, as if they are actually living the situation. So this case came before just 3 judges bench. Justice Krishna Iyer, he authored the judgment. By Tahira is 1979, 2 SCC 316. The issue was a very simple issue, whether 125 is maintainable or not for maintenance purpose for a divorced Muslim women to be accessed or invoked. Mr. MC Bhandare, and I am just mentioning this name precisely, late Mr. Bhandare now, the argument we normally don't put like that. So I'm just reading from his submission. He said the courts below have surprisingly forgotten the plain provision and explanation B of section 125(1) of the code, which reads, wife includes a woman who has been divorced by or has obtained a divorce from her husband and has not remarried. So for him it was this simple language. Why you have to enter into all these complicated questions of whether it is maintainable or not? The language is quite simple. When the court was accepting the submission, and I'll just read few portions, it says, we hold that every divorcee otherwise eligible is entitled to benefit of maintenance allowance, and the dissolution of the marriage makes no difference to this right under the current code. Normally you would see most of the judgments, the moment wife has filed a maintenance application, they would immediately give divorce, and now say divorce has been obtained under personal law and 125 would not be applicable. It further says, while referring to Article 15(3), which says address the issues of weaker sections, and they name in the subclause they name the sections. Article 37 and 39, duty of the state to address the issues concerning weaker section. For interpretation and application of the socially beneficial provision of section 125 CRPC, the court held 125 of CRPC requires as a sine qua non for its application neglect by husband to maintain his wife. So if we are arguing this case, any of these cases, even otherwise, if not a Muslim woman, it's very simple to argue that what we have to establish is that the husband is has to maintain me and I am unable to maintain myself. This simple, and this interpretation would apply dehors the religion, because the court does not refer to any particular religion. Now the court further said that it was a consent decree and the meher money has already been paid. Court said the point must be clearly understood that the scheme of the complex provisions in chapter 9 has a social purpose. Ill-used wives and desperate divorcees shall not be driven to material and moral dereliction to seek sanctuary in the streets, where the husband by customary payment at the time of the divorce has adequately provided for the divorce, a subsequent series of recurrent doles in contra indicated, and the husband liberated. This is the theological interpretation and the sociological decoding of the text of section 127 CRPC, where one can file an application for variation of the order or vacation of the order. Now the judge further says the keynote thought is adequacy of payment, which will take reasonable care of maintenance. Payment of illusory amount by way of a customary or personal law requirement will be considered in reduction of maintenance rate, but cannot annihilate that rate unless it is reasonable substitute. And the sum up is that assume a husband has paid at that point of time, I'm saying some 500 rupees or maybe 2000 rupees as meher amount. Some amount to be paid during iddat period, that is 3 months period. Would that be suffice to maintain a person, and assume a wife is 26 years old? Would she be able to maintain herself, an illiterate person, no person to bank upon? And how are you addressing that situation? So the court was of the opinion that unless this is sufficient, so the benchmark is whether it is sufficient. If not, then certainly 125. We have cases where she exhausted meher iddat and then 125, and court says still maintainable. The legal sanctity of payment is certified by fulfillment of social obligation, not by ritual exercise rooted in custom, and that is meher and iddat amount. And sometimes the properties which were given, which we call in Hindu laws istridhan, whatever property given to wife by her relatives. No construction which leads to frustration of the statutory project can secure validation if the court is to pay true homage to the constitution. The only just construction of section is that Parliament intended divorcees should not derive a double benefit. If the first payment by of meher or ordained by custom has a reasonable relation to the object and is a capitalized substitute by the order under 125, not mathematically but fairly, then 127(3)(b) subserves the goal and relieves the obliger, not pro tanto but wholly. The benchmark was the same. Is she able to maintain? Are you providing reasonable? And then you are capable to do it. The purpose of payment under any customary or personal law must be to obviate destitution of the divorcee and to provide her with the wherewithal to maintain herself. The whole scheme of 127(3)(b) is manifestly to recognize a substitute maintenance arrangement by lump sum payment organized by custom of the community or the personal law of the parties. So in detail it refers to the personal law obligation, and that cannot annihilate the requirement of section 125 to maintain the wife. Now comes the next decision. There are some more quotations from the judgment which would be available in the paper. Second comes Fuzulan B. This is a case of 1980. The citation is 1980, volume 4 SCC 125. This is again by a 3 judges bench. The earlier judgment was also 3 judges bench. Here also Justice Krishna Iyer was part of the bench, and he only authored it. And must read para 2 of this judgment from the SCC citation I am referring to, where he says, "How long, O Lord, how long?" And his anger was, you would rarely find judgments when the court is expressing huge anger towards the view taken by the High Court. Because here again, High Court was of the opinion that maybe it's not a case that this High Court said Tahira B had to be applied on the particular facts of that particular case. It is not a law laid down in general, and that he distinguished the Tahira B law for the purpose of 125 application. So Justice Krishna Iyer had expressed his, annoyance over that view in so many words, at length. So must read, that is an interesting read of the judgment in that Fuzulan B. Again the issue was, and here he clarifies the issue further. And while clarifying, I am just reading a portion of it. The payment of an amount, customary or other, contemplated by the measure must inset and the intent of preventing destitution and providing a sum which is more or less the present worth of the monthly maintenance allowance the divorce may need until death or remarriage overtake. The policy of law abhors neglected wives and destitute divorcees, and section 127(3)(b) takes care to avoid double payment, one under custom at the time of divorce and another under section 125. Now just keep in mind this is a very neutral religion principle which we are otherwise applying. Like you have Justice Ashok Bhushan's judgment in 2020, that Ahuja's case, where he says, and other judgments also, he reiterated the law only there, that if you have normally what we do in other cases, we go for maintenance under 125, we do file maintenance under Domestic Violence Act, and then we do file 24 if there is a divorce proceedings going on. The court says what? Court says you cannot claim maintenance from all three courts or all three remedy forums. What you can do is, first court has granted something and still not sufficient for your purpose, that amount has to be adjusted against your total claim or the maintenance to be awarded. Now same thing is 127(3)(b), and same thing is being spoken by all the judgments even till now, that you cannot be doubly benefited, but certainly your requirement has to be addressed to. And the same principle which we have since age old principle, that to maintain the standards of what you were otherwise enjoying in your matrimonial home. Neither personal law nor any salvationary plea which hold against the policy of public law pervading section 127(3)(b) as much as it does section 125. So a farthing is no substitute for a fortune, nor naive consent equivalent to intelligent acceptance. So even if there is a divorce, even if I have signed it, even the Kaji has given the certificate, it would not still be taking away my right for maintenance under 125 CRPC. Now, then comes Muhammad Ahmad Khan versus Shah Banu, that famous 1985 judgment, 5 judges bench judgment. What was the occasion for this judgment to come and a 5 judges bench to sit and decide the very same thing, saying the very same things? And I was just wondering why it had to be. But then there is a case where a 2 judges bench of Justice Murtaza Fazal Ali and Justice A. Varadarajan, they had doubted the judgment of Justice Krishna Iyer in Bai Tahira and Fuzulun B. And therefore they said it has to be referred to a 3 judges a bench, larger bench of more than 3, because both the benches were 3 judges bench. And hence the occasion, by that time we didn't have the judgment of Justice Lahoti where it says it has to be first referred to the subsequent larger bench and then, but here in this case it would have been a subsequent larger bench, 5 judges only. So it was then referred to 5 judges. Interesting is, this bench has Justice Chandrachud as well as Justice Venkataramayya. Justice Chandrachud was then Chief Justice. Now also we have Justice Chandrachud as Chief Justice, and judgment is written by Justice Nagaratna, daughter of Justice Venkataramayya. So sometimes it unfolds very interesting facts. So this Shah Banu judgment is 1985 2 SCC 556. We popularly call it as Shah Banu case. It's a constitution bench judgment. Now what they do is, they broadly take cue from both these judgments of Justice Krishna Iyer, of Fuzlun B and Tahira B, by Tahira. And then they reiterate the very same law by some more clarification maybe, but broadly the law remains same. So I'm not reiterating. It remains the very same, that despite meher, despite personal law divorce, despite a consent divorce decree or certificate issued, the wife can still claim maintenance even if when she was married and now there is a divorce in between, still that right continues. And right continues even after, assume after divorce, she first accepted meher and then came, still then continues. So it broadly remains the same way. Then for the first time here they use the term secular code. Justice Krishna Iyer did not use these terms. Okay. So I was just wondering, in judgments all this comes Muslim, Hindu and all that, but sometimes it becomes a necessity. Because by that time there was an argument that it would not be applying on the Muslim women because of their personal law. So since the arguments were with the name of religion, now they said no, this is a secular court. So religion would not be making a difference. Now this judgment, I'll just read one portion. On the question under consideration, the Honorable Court held, we are concerned to find is whether meher is an amount payable by the husband to the wife on divorce. Some confusion is caused by the fact that under Muslim personal law, the amount of meher is usually split in 2 parts. One of which is called prompt, which is payable on the demand, and the other is called deferred. which is payable on the dissolution of marriage by death or by divorce. But the fact that deferred meher is payable at the time of dissolution of marriage cannot justify the conclusion that it is payable on divorce. I am reading this for a very, very particular purpose, that when I would read Daniel Latifi, I would refer that and I'll give the reference to. This becomes very important because of the sections then come in. 1986 Act would come in. What is the difference? I broadly, since I was till I was reading this judgment, of the view that yes, meher, dower, all that is at the time of divorce, a Muslim woman has to be provided. Those were the terms and conditions written at the time of marriage for the purpose to be given at the time of divorce. They have clarified this, and though I have not in my paper written that, Justice Chandrachud, when he was referring to all this, he relied upon a lot of literature of Mohammedan law. So to say that it is not as if, divorce never happens out of respect to the person. It's not something. Sir, correct me because you are sitting and I didn't see you before. It is not as if you are out of affection you are giving divorce to the wife. While the judgment says so, meher is something determined out of respect for a relationship you are commencing to. So they say though a part of it has to be given at the time of dissolution, but that has no relation with the divorce. That has nothing to do with the maintenance. It cannot be coined as maintenance under section 125, and therefore a distinction. Now this all has happened before 1986 Act. They didn't know that henceforth the government would be coming with the 1986 Act and they would be coining the terms differently. But they actually very elaborately dealt with meher, the concept of the same, and can that be substituted? Can that substitute maintenance? Now it says, and they say wife includes a divorced wife as well as the person in marriage. It further says whether, now they were examining another question which is interesting, whether there is any conflict with the provisions of section 125 and those of Muslim personal law on the liability of Muslim husband to provide for the maintenance of his divorced wife. Now in other two judgments before that, they did not frame this question, though they were answering that only. But this question was not pertinently framed, but there is any dichotomy. There is any conflict between two provisions. Court answered that by relying upon those two judgments and referring to the paragraphs of Justice Krishna Iyer in those two judgments. I am not repeating that. They found only one aspect of Fazlun B's case. They say one line which Justice Krishna Iyer said is not correct to them, and they said that need to be corrected. And that was only one part which I am missing. So I'll refer to that later once I get that. So they just corrected one aspect of Justice Krishna's judgment where he says that meher is not a sum which the Muslim personal law is payable on a divorce. He was dealing with this aspect. But once I find that, I'll just refer to that. Now immediately after this 1985 judgment, there was so much of the hue and cry, like this time so much of the noise, and government dealt with that hue and cry, and they came out with this 1986 Act, which is Muslim Women Protection of Rights on Divorce Act 1986. The statement of object is very clear. Normally, no mincing of the words kind of a statement of object. It says, the Supreme Court in Muhammad Ahmad Khan has held that although the Muslim law limits the husband's liability to provide for maintenance of the divorced wife to a period of iddat, it does not contemplate or countenance the situation envisaged by section 125 CRPC. The court held that it would be incorrect and unjust to extend the above principle of Muslim law to cases in which the divorced wife is unable to maintain herself. The court therefore came to a conclusion that if the divorced wife is able to maintain herself, the husband's liability ceases with the expiration of the period of iddat. But if she is unable to maintain herself after the period of iddat, she is entitled to have recourse to section 125 of the Code of Criminal Procedure. Now, many of the writ petitions filed, many of the cases filed in different high courts, and thereafter some transfer petitions filed, cases were transferred here, and the whole of the petitions were then discussed and decided by the 5 judges bench in Daniel Latifi. The only surprising aspect is that this is 86 Act, petitions came early, The judgment came in 2001. So if we just go through our order sheets, we'll realize that what happened and why this long period has taken for a judgment to come. The arguments were very precise that petitioners who challenged that, including the lawyer for Shah Bano, in that Daniel Latifi was a lawyer for Shah Bano. They challenged the act by saying this is nothing but an attempt by the government to nullify the dictum of the court in Shah Bano case, and that it takes away the basis of the judgment, and which is not permissible in law. Now, the 5 judges bench, when they were actually delving into and they heard the matter at length, they uphold the validity. Though they found the errors in the judgment, they uphold the validity by saying it's better to save the act by reading down provisions and taking away the portions of the section 3 or section 5 and for that matter section 7 which are troubling or which were in the nature of non-obstantive clause, and taking away the very purpose of social beneficial purpose of section 125 CRPC. So it says, I'm just reading few of them. A Muslim husband is liable to make reasonable and fair provision for the future of the divorced wife, which obviously includes her maintenance as well shall be extending beyond the iddat period. So this takes care of section 3, which says for the iddat period. Right? So it takes away that mandate of section 3 by reading it down or reading appropriately. They use the term reading appropriately. This liability is not confined to iddat period. A divorced Muslim woman who has not remarried and who is not able to maintain herself after iddat can proceed as provided under section 4 of the act against her relatives who are liable to maintain her in proportion to the properties which they inherit on her death according to Muslim law from such divorced women, including her children and parents. If any of the relatives being unable to pay maintenance, the magistrate may direct the state Waqf board established under the act to pay such maintenance. The provisions of the act do not offend article 14, 15, 21 of the constitution only because they are added down. So the act could be saved only because of the appropriate reading and toning down the mandate of the sections, rather taking that away. Now we thereafter had, so far we have not seen any, in 3 of the judgments, any inconsistency. They were in the same line. The only development in Daniel Latifi is we have 86 Act, and they clarified that position as well. Then we have few division bench judgment, that is Sabra Shamim of 2004, then Iqbal Bano of 2007, Shabana Bano of 2010. All judgments reiterate Daniel Latifi and Shah Bano, saying very same thing. In Shabana Bano, the court, while relying upon Daniel Latifi, said petition filed by Muslim women under 125 of CRPC would be maintainable before the family court, and the amount of maintenance to be awarded under 125 CRPC cannot be restricted for the period of iddat only. Now, why I am reading this portion, it is repetition. The only difference is family court, because by that time in 84 you had family court, which were not there before, and this issue was not cropping up in terms of challenging that somebody said no, family court is not available for such petitions to be filed 125 or section 3 under the 86 Act. This has been later on also answered very properly, but here also they said that the magistrate of family court, even he would be entitled to entertain, or she would be entitled to entertain the petitions filed under section 3 of the 86 Act or 125. Now then comes Khatun Nisa. This is a 2014 judgment, a constitution bench. I am just referring because it is a constitution bench judgment. In my opinion, it somehow gives a space for some kind of interpretation, which we may either way argue. But this was a 5 judges bench judgment. One of the Justice Rajendra Babu was in Daniel Latifi also. So it's a 1-page or 2-page kind of a very small, short judgment. It says it deals with a situation where if you read 86 Act, there is a requirement of a consent, that both parties can consent to file a petition under 125. That means you obtain meher, but still you are consenting to come here. He said whether there is a consent or no consent, in not so many words, but I am just interpreting it this way. that whether there is consent or no consent, you can still approach 125 and that can continue. So it did not delve into issue a lot, but we can draw that conclusion from that judgment. Then comes Shamim Bano. This is again 2014. Now, when the court was placing reliance on Khatun Nisa, that was a 5 judges by judgment of Justice Rajendra Babu, they again now dealt with the aspect of Neha, section 3 of 1986 Act, and the fact that if there is an objection taken by husband under section 125, still that means no consent. Khatun Nisa says whether consent or no consent. Here the objection taken. So the irrespective of that, since Khatun Nisa decides that issue, so the petition would still be maintainable, whether objection or no objection, goes without saying. Hence comes then Shamima Farooqi. I'm almost coming close to the closure of Shamim Farooqi. This is 2015 judgment, again a division bench. So we have only 3 5 judges bench. One is Shahabano, second is Daniel Latifi, third is Khatun Nisa. Right? Rest of them are either 3 judges, those earlier 2 judgments, and rest of them are division bench judgments. It takes note of all the series of judgments on the issue of maintainability of the application of 125 for maintenance to be claimed by Muslim women, reiterates the legal position, and it says that the maintenance to be granted to the wife should be adequate to enable her to live the life with the dignity as she would have lived in the matrimonial home. This refers to many judgments on the issue of adequacy. So that's the only difference. In the rest of the judgment, they were dwelling so much on maintainability of the petition. Here, this judgment is important if when you are doing a matter like that this judgment, while dealing with the maintainability aspect, also deals with the adequacy part, and it refers a lot of judgment in this one. Rana Nahid is a judgment, is of very latest judgment, 2020. Justice Bhanumati and Justice Indra Banerjee. I believe one of those days when 2 of the female judges were holding the court, we had an occasion, I believe that was a Women's Day or something, but we had these 2 judges sitting together for the first time at that point of time. Later, Justice Nagaratna had a sitting with Justice Hema Kohli, and that way we had then those combinations repeating. The judges had a difference of opinion here, and they had an interesting difference of opinion because Justice Bhanumati was of the opinion that you cannot invoke Family Court Act. You cannot explore Family Court Act for the purpose of Section 3 application to be filed under 1986 Act. And she says Section 7 has its Section 7 of the Family Courts Act could not have referred to a provision of 1986 Act which was not even existing then. This was her approach. Justice Indra Banerjee had a completely altogether different view, and she says no, that would be available. When all the maintenance petitions or the matrimonial petitions can go before the family court, how come you just take that away? And 125 certainly was there. So if you are saying 125 and Section 3 can go hand in hand, a Muslim woman can explore either of it or both of it like we do in rest of the cases, then certainly that would be available. So they, with this difference of opinion, they referred the matter to a larger bench. Matter actually went to the larger bench. It was taken up by the larger bench. But then at the fate prevails. Sometimes the matter was otherwise settled between them, and the issue wasn't decided. So, despite a reference to a larger bench, this issue still possibly has to be decided in some other case. Though now the latest judgment is dealing with it without. No, they have. I'm correcting. They have referred to this judgment and the difference of opinion as well. Then we come to this one, the latest one, Justice Nagaratna and Justice Masi's judgment. Facts I have already disclosed in the beginning. To me, the facts were so simple. The wife was never bothered to come here, and that was a petty amount of 20,000, and that was an interim order. Broadly, normally courts do not even interfere. So many times we just go and come with a hanged head, or they have not entertained, and when the amount is only 20,000, but here they did, and maybe because of the fact that they noticed that there are many high courts are taking divergent view. So it's not as if this litigation has stopped coming to this court in this fashion. The maintainability issue is still being raised the maintainability issue is still being discussed, and the maintainability issue is still forcing petitions to come here. So, as a matter of fact, despite from Shah Banu, how many years it is? 85, 15 years then, and 24 years now. And from Daniel Latifi, 23 years. And we, the lawyers, possibly are still not stopping. So, possibly, I believe, despite the fact there is a consistent approach by Supreme Court, but divergent views taken by various high courts, this court must have felt the necessity or the urging necessity to once again reiterate. Gladly, while reiterating, here they have clarified the situation with far more clarity. And you must read, when you are reading the whole judgment of Justice Masi and Justice Nagaratna's judgment, paragraph 40, where in 10 pointers she gives in detail all the possibilities. What if there is a marriage under a special act? What if there is a divorce under special act or under personal laws? And she answers everything. The sum up is, in any eventuality, both remedies are available. It's a choice of the woman which remedy she chooses, or she wishes to proceed both. Certainly there would not be a duplication. If there is, the maintenance issue is addressed under the 1986 Act, then that can be adjusted here. If that was only meher, dower, and it was explained by Justice Krishnaiyer, dower is not dowry. So I am using the same expression of Justice Krishnaiyer which I have said used in Fuzilun B. How long, oh Lord, how long? And I'm just concluding by saying we must stop. We, the lawyers, must tell the litigations, despite the fact that it might stop some income from us to come, that this issue no more survives. This is no more res integra. This is a settled position of law. Let's not anymore raise the issue of maintainability of a maintenance petition by a Muslim woman under Section 125 CRPC. Now onwards, it would be Section 144 of the BNS. You call it BNS? And I'll say Bharatiya Nagrik Suraksha Sahita 2023. And thank you so much. And so sorry if there are any goof up or I was not clear somewhere.
Thank you. It was amazing.
Thank you very much, Shobhaji. Such a wonderful, so much complicated, honestly. So many facts, so many judgments, travel to so 25, 30 years. Still, the way you explained it's very tough job, honestly. Honestly, rightly mentioned, is a tough job.
Thank you, but I was assisted very well by my colleagues. Tajna is sitting there around my Jaipur office colleagues. She is Akanksha Bhatia and Saksham Mathur. All four of them, especially Tajna and three of them, all four of them worked very hard. I pushed them very, so it's okay, like they helped me a lot.
Would like to give vote of thanks? Come. Come. You take this, you come this.
Very thankful. Thank you so much, Shobha ma'am.
Thank you.
Or thank you so much, Seshu sir. And thank you so much, everyone.
Please. Let us have a cup of tea in the canteen. Yes. Thank you, Shobha. It's very